tell me your most challenging thing with your mom right now.
It's crazy because as I'm listening to her, I realize how different my abuse was. It was so much mental. My very first recollection was being 12 years old. And in Puerto Rico, we celebrate Three Kings.
Mhm.
I already lived here in the United States. Like, it was very British. So we would go every holiday. And I remember standing, we were at this park. This little girl walked up to my dad, and she's probably 3 years younger than I was, walked up to him, gave him a hug. I remember my mom tensing up. My dad tensed up. My mom said, "Who is that?" And my dad said, "Oh, it's just like, it's a friend's daughter, blah, 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 something, a neighbor's." And literally within minutes, she pulled out money, handed it to me, and she said, "Go buy candy and find out everything that little girl knows and who she is." And from that moment, I became the person that always had to find out who he was cheating with. What is he doing? Go fix it. And I was always in the middle of it. And whatever issues she had with him, it would take it out on me. Whether it was the silent treatment, whether it's calling me fat all the time. And keep in mind, it's a teenager. I was like 110 pounds. So I would walk around and I'll hear moo, and she'll moo towards me. Or I don't remember her saying, "I love you." I remember the comparison between myself and my siblings all the time. And it was always just this mental game with me. But I always wanted to please her. So I'm like, because if I did something like finding out who the little girl was, coming in my 20s to go fight women, all of that pleased her. So that's what I always wanted to do. That she liked me then. We were good then. So I constantly wanted to please this woman, that if I wasn't doing something for her, then afterwards it was just kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
You're not really there. It's like, let me get back to the kid that I love and that I'm with, but you're crazy. You have all this anxiety. And I'm like, now older, I'm like, well, I wasn't crazy. I had so much on my mind that I didn't need to worry about. I didn't need to be hearing all the things that I was hearing while I was home between you guys, conversations, and just all this hatred that was then spewed towards me because I was interjected into whatever they had going on and brought on by her. So everything was really mental. Yes, there were whoopings. But what I remember from her, it's all just like this. When I talk about her and when I think of it, I just get anxious.
And it taught you that you have to work to earn love when love should be free, but you had to work to earn your mother's love. I'll tell you, that's really interesting, the contrast that, it was a physical abuse and mental abuse. Both, it's mental abuse for you as well. I have to say with my mom, I did get hit. And I think that was a normal part of discipline when we were younger. Now, we were talking about this earlier, that it feels like abuse. But at that time, it was normal to be hit. I was not a child who ever needed to be hit. Like, you could hurt my feelings and that was enough. So when I was in trouble, I would run up to my mom. I'd be crying. Most kids would run and hide. I would run to my mom and hold her and say, "Mommy, I love you so much. How could you do this to me?" And she would be trying to hit me and end up hitting herself. So it wasn't a lot. Our challenges came mostly from her drinking. And like you, my mother will not acknowledge it. It's like, that happened and we have moved on. Or if I bring up one little thing, it's like, I don't want to talk about this, like, just, it would go so far. I remember when she got sober, it wasn't that long ago. It was about 6 years ago now. And I was thinking like, oh, okay, I know the 12-step program. She's going to want to have this whole conversation and apologize. I needn't to have worried because there was no apology coming. There was not even an acknowledgement coming that this thing happened throughout my childhood. The night I left home, my mother was drunk out of her mind and she was so angry. She lost her mother and saw her mother die. We were in this house that just felt like death to me. It was just awful. And after she lost her mother, she could not come back to reality. And she was yelling. We had an exchange. She hit me and I hit her back. And I left home at 16 and never went back again. And on that journey has been this journey of trying to mend that relationship, trying to understand her. So I'm curious, because at least you want to reconnect with your mom.
No, well, my mother continued to love me and abuse me my whole life, even into when I was married. At one point, I found myself paying her mortgage. She tricked me about some money and then attached it to her mortgage. So, if I loan you $5,000, that's different than attaching that to your mortgage. Because if you paying your mortgage, the principal, interest, whatever, you might pay $10 toward that, but the rest is principal and interest, and she kept this thing. So for years, I paid her mortgage on this small loan. But I'm going to tell you, honestly, what broke the yoke for me. I then had a daughter who I thought was it. And I have never hit her because of the abuse that I suffered. I knew what it felt like to be a helpless child. And your mother, the lady supposed to love you the most, is bringing that vengeance on your body. So when I had my little girl, I poured into her everything I had. I mean, she played, just loved her. We cheered together. We cooked together. I thought I was being this perfect mom. As a matter of fact, my daughter was very talented. So she was on stages. She was in concerts. I was dressing her. I was a hairdresser. Her hair was the best going to school. I wanted her to look a certain way. I doted on her. And when she became like 12, 13, 14, one day I looked at her. The way she looked at me is the way I looked at my mother. And I couldn't figure out, like, why is she looking at me like I'm perfect? I did everything great. And she looked at me, y'all, I'm telling you, it froze my heart. I'm like, I'm in the same area. And so I thought praying about it. I started thinking about it because I was like, I didn't beat her. Why is she looking at me that way? And I promise y'all, here's my hand to God. God spoke to me and told me, until you forgive your mother, you're going to keep on with this generational curse. It's a curse of generations of women and our daughters and the relationships. And here I'm thinking I'm perfect. But I probably, even though I didn't hit her, I probably was making demands of her body that I wasn't even aware of how she had to walk, how you had to look, how you had to be in public, cross your legs, speak to this one, go over there and hug your uncle. I was still abusing my daughter from those generational demands that we put on young Black girls.
Yeah.
I should not have demanded she like her aunts who didn't like her, or go places she didn't want to go.